Today, I wish to continue this very deep subject and one of the most, I think, the central teaching of the Buddha's path, the dependent origination or dependent arising or law of causality. And hopefully today I wish to not only talk about this map, which is like the path, like the kind of the reasoning or like the framework, but also how it fits in together with our meditation practice, which is the practical thing that we do. Also, how the gradual training is there, and the Noble Eightfold Path. So all of those things, because that is the essence of Buddhism, isn't it? The whole teaching, the problem, the map, and instructions and solution. Yeah, all of that interconnected, and hopefully we will have enough time to do all that. And if not, we will continue on. So, last week, I think I took some time to explain, how the Buddha discovered this, what we call as Paticca Samuppada, the law of dependent co-arising. On the night of his awakening, he had an inquiry, right? His big insight was his suffering vanished, right? He realized that suffering vanished. Then he asked, so what was the cause? What caused my suffering? How did the suffering come about? So that was directing his mind to the origin of things. This is called yoniso manasikara, or wise attention. And as a result, he went going backwards. This is the descending order of this sequence with 12 links. And I also went into explaining all the definitions as given by the Buddha in the suttas. So we have now a good understanding of each step and how they are related to one another. So I'm not going to really repeat that, but some of it will get repeated regardless. Maybe not. But let me just remind you a little bit. It's nice anyway to recap. So we saw, like the Buddha's investigation revealed that the thing that gives rise to suffering, old age, suffering, death, and this whole mass of problems was because we were born, birth, yeah, rebirth. Not just even birth, it is rebirth. It is really important because if it was just one life, I'm sure we can all find smart ways to deal with one life. But being born again and again and going through all kinds of problems is the real issue at hand. So then birth was the problem. And he asked the question, what gave rise to birth? And he discovered bhava, or existence, existent into, various kinds of beings, human beings, animals, angels, hell realms, all kinds of beings, all kinds of existence, because these kinds of existence were possible, and we have created the necessary karma and intention to want to be born in these places made us to be born there. And then the Buddha investigated what was the reason, the cause, why there is existence. And then he discovered it is upadana, the hanging on to things, clinging on to things. That is what created this existence, or clinging on. Then he asked the question, what made us to cling on to things? What makes us you want things so strongly? And then he discovered it is due to craving, tanha. Yeah, craving is what makes us to hold on to things, to cling on to things, that gives us existence, which results in birth, and then it leads to all this suffering. Then he asked the question, what gave rise to tanha, or craving? And craving came because of feeling. Yeah, when you feel something, whatever is enjoyable or whatever you like, that you crave for, whatever you dislike, you crave to be away from it or rid of it. Yeah. So either way, there is a form of craving. So feeling gives rise to craving. Then he asked the question, so what gives rise to feeling? And then he discovered it is contact, like when our eye contacts the world and the forms, yeah, when our ear contacts sounds, when that contact happens, the coming together of the sense organ and its corresponding sense object, and the arising of that particular type of consciousness, that is called contact. When contact happens, we feel whatever we feel. Then from feeling, craving is born. When craving happens, it goes to clinging, giving rise to existence, birth, old age, death, and suffering. So then what gives rise to contact? Contact happens because we have the sense organs, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind and nose. Yeah, so when we have these six sense bases, contact is unavoidable almost. So what gives rise to then these sense objects? And that is when we realize when there is a being, when there is this body and mind, when a being is born into the world, yeah, it has these six sense bases. So this body and mind, or nama rupa, yeah, nama rupa is what gives rise to sense organs. And then what gives rise to this being of body and mind? And that is consciousness. Yeah, the consciousness, because otherwise it is just a body, is also not enough. It also has to come together with consciousness. This is a deep point which I will take up separately to make it more clear. But for now, let's say when we have consciousness, it gives rise to a being, mind and body. And when you have mind and body, there is the sense organs which contacts the world. With contact, feeling is born. What one feels, one can crave. What one craves, one clings on to, giving rise to existence, birth, old age, sickness, and whole mass of suffering. So what gave rise to consciousness is what is called sankhara, or our volition, intentions. Yeah, our intentions is what gives rise to consciousness. Yeah, so intention, there were wholesome intentions, unwholesome intentions, and intentions that led to deep meditative states, but also intentions born of body, mind, and words. Yeah, verbal, kaya kamma, vachi kamma, mano kamma. So this is where also the karma is related, because how we ended up with this deep topic in the first place is people asked to explain the relationship between karma and paticca So the karma is cause and effect, like the things that we have done, intentional actions done by body, speech, and mind, and how it is related to this dependent co-arising. So this is where this volition is. And what gives rise to volition? What is the intention? Where is that coming from? And the Buddha discovered it is due to ignorance. When there is ignorance, that is this not knowing that there is suffering in the world, not knowing that things are impermanent, not knowing that things don't really belong to us and are not within our control, not knowing these things, yeah, that things are inherently unsatisfactory, this impermanence, non-self, and suffering, these ideas. These are the things that consist ignorance. So when there is ignorance, there is always this feeling of sense of agency within. So we all feel that I'm here, there is somebody here. And once we have that feeling, we intend things. Yeah, so we intend things. So we want things. So that is how this whole thing started. So the Buddha discovered, okay, the whole problem of suffering is due to ignorance. So ignorance, so avijja in Pali. So then what are we going to do? How are we going to get rid of this ignorance? What is the reason? How do you deal with it? Yeah. So this is this whole path of practice. So in this sutta that I'm going to read out, which is called proximate cause. sorry, not the proximate, of course. I want to read the other sutta. Sorry. The sutta, this is from Anguttara Nikaya. This is Numerical Discourses, book 10, sutta number 61, called Ignorance. The name of the sutta is Avijja. Yeah. So I'm going to read it out and hopefully we'll explain and find out a bit more about this idea of ignorance. Because this is said, a first point of ignorance, because is not seen such that before this there was no ignorance, and afterward it come into being. Still, ignorance is seen to have a specific condition. Yeah. So elsewhere, I have read that actually Buddha had gone back 91 eons in time because he has the ability to go back to his past lives and then discover there was no discoverable beginning to what is called ignorance. Yeah, that is what the Buddha had said. But the thing is, even though there is not a time that it started, so there is no discoverable beginning, the good thing is that it has a condition, a specific condition. It is born from a condition. Now, this is what gives us hope. If there is a condition, then we can do something about it. If it is also doesn't have a condition, then we are pretty much stuffed. Then we are stuck in ignorance and we just have to suffer. But the Buddha says that ignorance has a specific condition, a nutriment, then that makes it a bit more bright. Our future is bright. So the Buddha says, I say, bhikkhus, that ignorance has a nutriment. Yeah. It is not without a nutriment. And what is the nutriment for ignorance? It should be said that 5 hindrances. Yeah, 5 hindrances. These are called pancha nivarana in Pali. So 5 hindrances, what are they for the people who are not familiar? So kama chanda, which is sensuality, vyapada, which is ill will and negativity, tina midda, which is laziness, slothfulness, that kind of very low mind, and then uddacha kukkucha, which is restlessness and worry, and then what is it? Doubt. Yeah, doubt is what Vicikiccha. Yeah, Vicikiccha is doubt. So sensuality, ill will and negativity, sloth and torpor or laziness of the mind, restlessness and worry, and then doubt. So even though it's only called 5, some things are pairs, yeah, but they are in the same category. So as long as these things are there in the mind, ignorance will continue on. So this is our very big problem. So it is really important to understand how this is so. Now, in another sutta, the Buddha explains this quite beautifully by using a simile of a lake, a little pond rather. Yeah. So the idea of, seeing through ignorance is like seeing through the bottom of the lake to see what is really there, seeing the world for what it is truly, yeah? Seeing things. This is yata bhuta jnana dasana, things, having clarity, seeing things clearly. If that is like having a really clear forest pool that is really calm, not disturbed, and very still, then you can see through. But, if the water has some colored dye, if there is colored dye floating on the water, then it distorts your vision, right? And you can't see clearly what is there, what is really there at the bottom. So this colored dye is like sensuality in our mind. That is our desires to see sights, hear sounds, taste things, smell things, and craving and longing for touches and mental fantasies. All of these things, all of this sensual world, and our craving for the sensual world, what is called sensual pleasures. So this distorts our vision, clear vision. When that is there in the mind, it is really hard. That is why, even if we understand there is suffering in the world, there is all these problems, and we hear the Dhamma, it makes sense, but nothing happens. Our mind does not leap towards it. Yeah, Nibbida, which is called like disenchantment, doesn't happen. We still crave to exist. We still crave to experience the world. Yeah, that is because sensuality is distorting. Yeah, we go, yeah, I know, but I still want to enjoy. It is there in the very deep sense, in a very deep sense. Because some people, have gone through many difficulties in life. They know, there is so much issues, problems. It's not like a bed of roses, but yet, that's still some hope. Maybe the next partner would be better. Maybe the next life would be better. Maybe the next job would be better. Something, there is still hope, thinking that there is some pleasure to be had in the sensual world. So this is the sensuality, yeah? Kama chanda. So desire for the sensual pleasures distorts our mind like colored dye in the lake. So then ill will and negativity is like a volcanic pool when it is bubbling and steaming, yeah? Really hot pool. When it is bubbling and steaming, then again you can't see what is at the bottom. It's not a clear forest pool anymore. So that bubbling and steaming is like ill will, negativity, anger. Your mind is hot, yeah, so to speak, and we know what that's like. And when we have that kind of anger, irritation, and even slight annoyance, that stops us from seeing things clearly. And we all know that is when we have made mistakes, and we even say, I couldn't see at the time. Yeah, that's why you shouted at somebody, or you lied, or you did something that you wished that you didn't do later. Yeah, but when you were overcome by some anger or irritation at that time, it's hard to see, let alone seeing more clearly the reality of things. Even you can't see sensible things. You become irrational and do stupid things at that time. So this is what ill will and negativity vyapada does to our mind. So that's a second nivarana, second hindrance. So third one, sloth and torpor, yeah, the slothfulness, the lazy mind, even the depressed mind, all of that, low energy mind. This is like there is algae on the water. Have you seen these green algae covered pools? And when there is a thick layer of algae, there is no possibility to see anything. Yeah, your mind is so dull, so weak, so lack of energy. You just follow through in half asleep. Yeah, half asleep. But this is most of us actually. Most times in our day, we think we are awake, but we are actually quite fast asleep. Yeah, this becomes very apparent when you actually have a moment of deep meditation, and when your mindfulness gathers moment and you really become really alert. And that is when you realize, wow, my life, even the times that I think I was so alert, like maybe your wedding day or the graduation, or, when you were receiving your graduation certificate, or when you were giving a speech at a conference, or when you had your first baby or something like that, you think you were really alert, but you realize how fast asleep, how slothful and down your mind is even at those times, let alone the times that you are actually kind of sleepy, slothful, and lazy mind, or even depressed mind. So, no possibility to make understanding. Insights are not possible in a mind that is weak like that. So, sloth and torpor is like covered in algae. And the fourth hindrance, restlessness and worry. This is like when there is a lot of wind and there are a lot of waves in the water. When the water is so wavy, it is impossible to see the bottom. Yeah, your mind is so restless, full of remorse, regrets, worries, all of these things. When the mind is going up and down like that, restless incredibly, it is impossible to see anything clearly, yeah, completely in the dark. So that is like wavy water. and then doubt. Yeah, doubt about the Buddha's teachings. Was there a Buddha? Are there teachings? Is this true? Is there rebirth? Is there karma? Is there this? Is there that? Is what we are learning true? All of these doubts about the Dhamma, yeah, about these teachings. If we have the doubt, it is like muddy water. Yeah, when there is mud in the lake, again, impossible. It's a thick layer of mud, and you don't know what is below that. So this is like the five hindrances. And in our mind, these things are always there. These things are there at various degrees, and some become more stronger at times. Maybe a couple of them become together stronger at times, because when you are lazy, you also can get easily angry or restless and things like that. Sometimes you feel like you have all five at the same time, and this is also true. But anyway, we have all five unless we are in first jhana. That is the first level of deep meditation. That is when these five hindrances subside temporarily and the water becomes clear, our mind becomes clear, clear enough to see, clear seeing. You know, you hear the term vipassana in the Buddhist circles a lot. So vi means clear, passana means seeing. This clear seeing happens when the hindrances are at least temporary down. In a mind of a fully enlightened person, they are completely eradicated, not temporary suppression, but they're completely gone. But up until that full enlightenment, during deep meditation, these hindrances are gone, and that is when there is a possibility to see clearly. So it is really important to understand these terms when you hear Panchupadana Kanda or five hindrances. These are the five, that is Kama Chanda, the Vyapada, Tina Midda, Uddacha Kukucha, Vichikicha. That is sensuality, ill will and negativity, sloth and torpor or laziness, restlessness and remorse, and then doubt. So these are the things that keeps the ignorance going. Yeah, this is the nutriment. Yeah, we are ignorant. This is the whole point. Yeah, because we are ignorant, these things are kept up, and when they are kept up, we are in the ignorance. So they sort of, it's like a feedback loop. Yeah, so it is because we are ignorant that we have sensuality. We think there is a sense of self, and there is all these things that are to be enjoyed in the world, when in the real sense they only bring much more suffering than happiness. We have spoke a lot about these things in previous Dhamma talks. Yeah, how craving promises so much and delivers very little. Yeah, whatever we expect it to be, things are always otherwise, and all of these things that we long for comes with a big paycheck. Yeah, you invest in a lot of suffering to get a little bit of gratification. All of that, yeah, all of that is that big mass of ignorance. It is because of this ignorance that we have sensuality. And of course, ill will and negativity is the direct opposite of that. Yeah, when your sensuality is taken away, is challenged or threatened in some way, that is when your anger can come. And of course, also with your sense of self, this idea, the big ignorance, there's me, the sense of agency, and that sense of self, the ego, cause so much suffering to us as well. So that is all part of this ignorance. And of course, slothful mind, you can see how ignorant that is, doesn't know what's going on. And restlessness also due to ignorance. You can see how these things all feed ignorance, and ignorance feed the five hindrances. So anyway, five hindrances is, of course, the nutriment the Buddha says here. And then five hindrances too, I say, have a nutriment. They are not without nutriment. That is good news again, right? So it is good when there is nutriment. When there is a cause and condition, then we have hope. And what is the nutriment for the five hindrances? It should be said the three kinds of misconduct. The three kinds of misconduct. Sorry, what are the three kinds of misconduct? This is called Tivida Ducharita, that is the misconduct by body, misconduct by speech, and misconduct by mind. Yeah, so whenever we are behaving in unskillful ways by body, speech, and mind, the five hindrances are kept up. Take a moment to think about it, right? So when we are wanting, craving, and we steal things, so have an affair, extramarital affair, these are very common things, yeah? When you want to flirt with somebody else, or you want to eat things you're not supposed to eat, or all kinds of this sensual world, yeah? And how when we do things by body and speech and mind, and then there is the regrets that comes up with that, yeah, with that regrets and remorse comes up afterwards, and with that the mind goes into states of slothfulness, yeah, it tires the mind out. The sensuality really makes your mind very tired, and also, anger is then just next door to all of those things. And then restless, then worry about what will happen. Will people find out? And all this stupidity, yeah? And then you also start doubting about things. So you can see, this misconduct by body, speech, and mind is also what keeps the hindrances going. But you can also see how hindrances also leads you to do things wrong by body, speech, and mind, but and also vice versa. And as you keep doing things bad by body, speech, and mind, then the hindrances are kept up. So these things have feedback loops within. So there's like a big conditioning sequence that is going on, but each loop also sort of feed each other. So you can see how when there is delusion, when there is ignorance, when we are in the dark, the five hindrances are there. When the five hindrances are there, we do things bad by body, speech, and mind. But by doing bad things by body, speech, and mind keeps up the five hindrances, keeps the ignorance going. So this is how it goes. So then, the three kinds of misconduct, too, I say, have nutriment. They are not without nutriment. And what is the nutriment for the three misconducts? And it should be said, non-restraint. Yeah, non-restraint. So sense restraint, yeah, here is the non-restraint of the sense faculties. So when our sense faculties are left unguarded, that is when the misconduct happens. So imagine you've just come out of meditation and now very peaceful, driving to work peacefully. But then after a while, you get a little bit relaxed and carried away, and you just see a signpost by the side of the highway. Yeah. And you know what happens sometimes, your mind, you were not hungry before, and then you see this yummy something, and suddenly hunger cravings can come. And just a little after that, there is the exit to the fast food place. So, or else you can see some kind of, thing with somebody, some very attractive, and suddenly lust could come up. Or you could see maybe something that says something harmful to the environment, maybe, or to people, and maybe anger and ill will can come up. Yeah, just by seeing a sight. If you left your eye faculty unguarded, then anger, ill will, or sensuality, attraction, and craving can happen. So this does not mean that you keep your eyes closed. Of course, then you can't drive, right? You can't drive with closed eyes. You have to have your eyes open. So guarding your sense faculties or sense restraint does not mean that you close your sense faculties. Anyway, you can't close the ear, right? There's no possibility to close. You will hear things, yeah? When you're in the shopping mall, you'll hear things. When you're in the train, at home, people constantly talk. So you always hear things, even if you don't want to. It is impossible to shut it out. Yeah, but how then are we going to restrain the faculties? So the way is how we deal with it, how we receive them, how we look at things. Yeah. So what kind of signs are you going to take up? Yeah. So when you see that billboard, yeah, where you see something, you don't take the signs that gives rise to craving, to desire. Instead, you see what it is. It's just, information. It's just a picture. It's just, something. So you don't take the science that gives rise to craving. Instead, you look at it as way of elements or way of body parts if it is an attractive person, something to counter the sensuality. So same with hearing, yeah, whatever you hear, you have to sort of filter it out in a way that ill will or negativity doesn't come out, sensuality doesn't come out, like that you have to guard. So whatever we smell, taste, we can see how in generally we like to take up the signs that gives rise to desire, or sometimes we take up signs that gives rise to ill will and negativity. So instead of taking up those signs, you guard the sense faculty. So you can still see, you can still hear, taste, touch, all those things, smell, and even think, but it is how you do it. What kind of signs do you take up? How you look at things. So this is part of the training. So this is where the gradual training will come in. How do you train? So sense restraint. So when your sense faculties are left unguarded, then you get desires, ill will, negativity. When those things can come up, especially when the desires come up, that is when you do misconduct by body, speech, and mind. When that happens, then the hindrances, the five hindrances are kept up, and the delusion is got nutriment. Right? Delusion is kept up. And when, of course, when the delusion is there, the whole feedback loop goes all the way back as well. So they are helping each other and kept alive. And this is our life. This is our mind. This is how we go. So now we are getting little by little to understand, okay, the problem is how we look at things. It's not about, problem is not having an eye or a mouth or, ears, but it is how we do things. But it is difficult, isn't it? Because we are habitually trained, we are conditioned to look at things in a certain way, to hear things in a certain way, even smell, taste, touch things in a certain way. We are heavily conditioned. We have taken up so many views, and on top of all, we also read so many reviews. Yeah, we read reviews and you increase your desires. Wow, I want the next version. This sounds awesome. This is where I want to go. This is what I want to have. Yeah, so you even reinforce by reading reviews and talking to people, and all of those things increase our delusion, yeah, our desires. So be careful. So this is where work is to be done, yeah. Not easy, but possible, and has to be done if we want to reduce suffering, because suffering was caused by ignorance. And if you want to reduce ignorance, take away the nutriment, then guarding our sense faculties become very important, right? So then what is the nutriment? Now, because we are going to run out of time, instead of reading, it goes in the same pattern. I will do the sequence by memory as much as possible, or I'll just say the things that are important. Yeah. So non-restraint of the faculties, the nutriment is lack of mindfulness and clear comprehension. Yeah. So lack of mindfulness, isn't that the case? It is so true, right? When you are not mindful, then we just look at things that we shouldn't be looking at. And in a way, we just give rise to desires or anger or whatever it is. So when there is no mindfulness, of course, this is a problem. So when mindfulness is there, there is a bit more hope. But just mindfulness is also not enough. Because sometimes we have said in the past also, we could mindfully do the stupid thing. We know we shouldn't do it, but we could still go ahead and do it. Why? Because our view is still wrong. We still have a lot of wrong view. So clear comprehension is that wisdom aspect. Yeah, comprehension in the teachings. What was the Buddha's instructions? What's the problem? What's the danger if I behave in this way? If I look at things in this way, there's a problem. So mindfulness together with clear comprehension. I like to say this is called in Pali Sati Sampajanya. And this is like not only being aware of what you're doing. This is number one. You need to be aware in the first place, because some people are not even aware of what they're doing or what's going on with their body and mind. And this is so true in life. And we also know sometimes we don't know. We are not in touch with our body and mind. This is more and more the case, as much and more people are getting into all these smartphones and being on all those, TikTok and all kinds of things, and we are far away, completely disconnected with the body and mind. So don't and have no awareness even what is going on. So of course, awareness is number one. What is going on? What am I doing? But it is that itself isn't enough. Sati Sampajanya means, what am I doing? Why am I doing? And how am I doing? So what, why, and how. All three are important. Then it is a little bit more complete. So what am I doing? I'm looking at these things. Why am I looking at these things? Okay, because I need to get some information. But how am I looking at it? Am I looking at it in just to purely get the information, or in a way that I'm getting more and more ill will as a result, or desires coming up? How am I doing it? As my wholesome mind states increasing, or as a result, my wholesome mind states are decreasing, or my unwholesome mind states are increasing, or unwholesome mind states are decreasing? So you have to watch. Yeah. So mindfulness is not only having that awareness of what you're doing, but also awareness of how is your mind state as you're doing it. Why are you doing it? How you're doing it? Yeah, how are you directing your mind towards this? Are you directing it in a wise way or unwise way? So all of that, this is really important. So this is mindfulness and clear comprehension. So when there is no mindfulness and no clear comprehension, then our sense faculties are left unguarded. We look at things just and desires come up, anger and ill will can come up, all these things can come up. And when that comes up, then we can do misconduct by body and speech and mind. When we do that, the hindrances get a nutriment, they are kept up, and that gives rise to ignorance. And ignorance is well and truly kept up. So you can see how important this mindfulness is on the path. Yeah? Sati Sampajanya is the starting form of mindfulness, and a very practical form of mindfulness. The day-to-day mindfulness, we have given a whole Dhamma talk or several talks on this aspect, how you can use mindfulness in the day-to-day life. So this is that, yeah, how to guard yourself. This is the most important aspect, and Sati Sampajanya. So then, fortunately, Sati Sampajanya, this mindfulness and clear comprehension, also has a nutriment, thank goodness. So we know how to build it up. If you feel like your mindfulness and clear comprehension isn't strong enough, then there is hope, there is nutriment. What gives rise to mindfulness and clear comprehension is yoniso manasikara, wise attention. Yeah, wise attention. So wise attention. So wise attention is also knowing how to look at things. Yeah, that understanding. So wise attention is yeah. So careless attention is what gives rise to lack of mindfulness, because we are going down the series. So careless attention is what gives us. This is easy to understand. Yeah, when we are careless in how we attend, then our mindfulness is not there, and also there is no wisdom. So careless attention. So why do we attend carelessly? Yeah, unwise attention, unwisely attending, that gives rise to lack of mindfulness. It's not possible to have mindfulness. So opposite also we can go through, but careless attention is what takes away your mindfulness. And you would also think, well, when you don't have your mindfulness, that is when you attend carelessly. Again, remember, there is a little feedback loop between the adjoining nearby two conditions, yeah, two factors. They have a feedback loop. Yeah, careless attention gives rise to lack of mindfulness, and the lack of mindfulness gives rise to careless attention. And when that is kept up, of course, sense faculties are left unguarded, and it goes all the way to keeping up the ignorance going. So careless attention also has a nutriment, and the nutriment for careless attention is, what is it? Lack of faith, lack of confidence. Yeah, when you have lack of confidence in the teachings of the Buddha, that is when you have careless attention. You don't care about what the Buddha says. Okay, you will get into danger. You will get into problems if you attend carelessly. You attend in a way these strong desires are coming up. Strong, ill will and negativity is coming up. And if you don't really have enough confidence about, these teachings and understanding what the Buddha has said, then you would attend carelessly. So lack of faith. Lack of faith is what gives rise to careless attention. And also, and then this lack of faith also has a nutriment. And the nutriment for that is not hearing good teachings. Yeah, not hearing good teachings. If you haven't heard good teachings by the Buddha or this really beautiful wisdom teachings, then you have lack of faith. Yeah, you hear other things. You hear opposite. You hear actually other things that you in the world you should be doing this, you can do that, and that will make you happy. Do this and that will make you happy. And we have actually gone down that path many times, only reaping suffering most of the time for a little bit of gratification. So we know that. But that is because we have not heard good Dhamma. Instead, we have heard non-Dhamma. Yeah, what is not the Dhamma. What the world says, what the economy says, what the advertisement says. Yeah, when we follow those, that is what happens to careless attention. When we attend lack of faith and careless attention. So not hearing Dhamma also has a nutriment. And the nutriment for not hearing Dhamma is not meeting good friends, Kalyana Mittas, or beings who teach these teachings, yeah, they are called Kalyana Mitta or Sappurisa, yeah, ideally Aryans, like fully enlightened beings, or even your biggest Kalyana Mitta is the Buddha himself, or anybody who gives these teachings, shares these teachings, reads them out to you. That is helpful. Yeah, brings them out. So hanging around them, not having good friends. Instead, you have friends you lead in the opposite direction, who says, let's go gambling, let's go to the casino, let's go hunting, it is fun. Yeah, you know what happens when you hang around such friends, then of course you go down the wrong track and you end up being kept under the ignorance and suffering. So it goes down all the way to not meeting good friends, and it actually stops there. Yeah, so meeting good friends is the starting point of everything. Yeah, so this is which gives hope. So when you meet bad friends, or rather people who are a little bit unwise, yeah, then they can take you in the wrong track. They can tell you very dangerous things and tell you that it is good to do them. Like, if you have mafia friends, or, people who are into doing harm, hurt, you know what it is like. We see this day in, day out. Yeah. Sometimes you see young kids, yeah, leaving school, and they get together with, like-minded kind of people. If they are wise and good and in a good way, that's fine. But if they are not, then they get into all these kinds of drugs, sex, and abuse, and all kinds of stupidity, when going to stealing and doing all kinds of things, just by being influenced. Yeah, by being influenced, because we are conditioned. This is the whole thing, right? We are human beings are conditioned. We are conditioned by our surroundings, the people we hang around with, teachings we receive, things we read, things we hear, things we read. All of these things conditioned us, yeah? So make sure, the only thing, if we want to eliminate ignorance and be free from suffering, the first point is to meet good people, wise people, and meet good teachings, wisdom teachings. They are coming across these things is the starting point. At one time, the Venerable Ananda, the Buddha's attendant, says to the Buddha, Bhante, I think 50% of the holy life is Kalyanamita, good friends. And the Buddha says, don't say so, Ananda, don't say so. It's not 50%, it is 100%. Yeah, 100% of this spiritual path is about meeting wise people, yeah, good friends who would guide you and condition you in the right direction. So meeting good teachings, yeah, not just the people, but the Buddha. And if you meet Buddha's teachings, this is helpful as well. So we can now just quickly look at the forward sequence to see how ignorance is eliminated. Yeah, forward sequence goes like this. So when you meet good people, wise people, the Buddha and his teachings in this occasion, when you meet good people, you get to hear good Dhamma, Sad Dhamma. Yeah, you get to hear the good teachings, the wisdom teachings. When you hear these good teachings, and when you try to apply even a little bit to your life, that is why I really like to give very many times very practical Dhamma talks. This is more of a little bit more theory, but usually my Dhamma talks, I like to talk about very practical things with one or two aspects of the Buddha's teachings and apply it into your life, and you can get results straight away. Yeah, this is the beautiful thing. The Buddha's teachings are called sanditthiko, yeah, apparent here and now. You give a gift, you give a compliment, you become happy straight away. So it's just immediate as well. You don't have to stay till you die and experience in your next life. That too happens, but in this very life, as you apply yourself, as you apply these teachings, you can benefit. So as you meet these Kalyana Mitras, good friends, as you hear these good teachings, then when you apply these things, when you realize, actually it makes sense, yeah, it brings result, it makes sense, I have benefited from it, which is why most of you are keep coming to hear these talks or listen to Dhamma teachings again and again. It's because you know these are true, these are work. So you start to gain confidence. So it's not a blind confidence, it is a confidence born from your own experiment by getting results. So after hearing the teachings, applying, you gain confidence. So when you gain confidence, then you actually remember these teachings. So you remember these teachings and you memorize them, and they are in your mind. So yoniso manasikara, the wise attention which comes next, because faith and confidence gives rise to yoniso manasikara, wise attention. That was the connection. So when you remember this teaching, then you know how to direct your mind. Yeah. So when you have wise attention instead of careless attention, you have wise attention. When you attend wisely, of course, you grow in your mindfulness and clear comprehension, understanding. And they have a feedback loop again. Of course, you have mindfulness. With faith also, you can also have the way you attend. So when you have mindfulness and clear comprehension, of course, then you can guard your sense faculties. When your sense faculties are guarded, of course, then there will be no misconduct by body, speech, and mind. And in the forward sequence, instead of not only there, it also goes into that you will be now practicing the four satipatthanas, yeah, the mindfulness established in the body, body, feelings, mind, and the dhammas, the phenomena. Yeah, so I'm going to not go into details here, but that is the samma sati, yeah, the higher form, the part that comes up in the Noble Eightfold Path. So now when you have restrained sense faculties, then it leads to practicing of the right mindfulness on the path. When you have right mindfulness, that leads to the seven bojjhangas, the seven factors of awakening. And seven factors of awakening leads to awakening. Awakening means eradication of the ignorance. So this is how it leads. So forward sequence you can see, but you can see the opposite as well. So when your sense faculties are guarded, you don't obviously do anything bad by body, speech, and mind. When that is not happening, the hindrances are down. When the hindrances are down, your mindfulness is up, your stillness, your concentration, or your meditation is also up. Yeah. So you are in deep meditation, and deep meditation gives rise to the factors, the 7 factors of enlightenment. Yeah. So, and from there, it goes into awakening. So there are so many Dhamma points here and so many things. Maybe I don't want to overwhelm you too much, but you can look up, yeah, the 7 factors of awakening. If I want to just complete this, just to say briefly, Sati, Dhammavichaya, Viraya, Dhammavichaya, Virya, Piti, Pasadi, Samadhi, Upekka. So Sati means mindfulness. Second one is investigation of states, gives rise to energy, gives rise to joy, gives rise to tranquility, gives rise to a stillness and to equanimity. Yeah, these are the 7 factors that gives rise to. These are the mind developing. Yeah, between Samma Sati, which is right mindfulness, to Samma Samadhi, right stillness. Between there is this 7 factors of awakening happening. So this is quite beautiful. So there, embedded there is the solution. Yeah. So this is the gradual training that was given in a way in this sutta. Yeah. How do you train? By meeting a good teacher, hanging out with wise people, reading these beautiful teachings, listening to them, memorizing them, applying them, and slowly, slowly your confidence in the teachings grows. As your confidence grows, then you have Yoniso Manasikara, wise attention, and you have Sati Sampajanya, a very essential factor that leads us and guides us and protects us on the path. Yeah, mindfulness and clear comprehension. And then you know how to be restrained. All of these things are part of the gradual training, yeah, which is also given in different sequences, but you can see all of that is included. So you can see how, in the previous talk, or the paticca samuppada, or the dependent origination, was giving the reason why we have suffering. Yeah, the problem is ignorance. So that discovery was there. Now here is what we can do, how we do this. Yeah, so this is the solution. So I think I'm going to just stop here and not bring out the next factor, which is very beautiful to understand the meditation and the Noble Eightfold Path coming together in here. It is already here, and anybody who is familiar can already see all of that here embedded, but I don't think I have time right now to do it quite nicely, but I will do that in the next talk. Yeah. And I will bring up another very beautiful sutta, which brings it up to, this is called transcendental dependent arising. That is the ending sequence, not the problem, but the solution in a practical way, meditation and Noble Eightfold Path. But this is quite a powerful sutta, this ignorance sutta. I really like it. It's one of the suttas very helpful to even memorize, because you remember, I have certainly memorized this long ago, so it comes up very naturally, and it's quite beautiful. It's got quite important Dhamma factors as you listen to Dhamma talks and also to other teachers and other Dhamma talks more openly. You get to hear some of these words. Yeah, so it's important to know the Dhamma terminology, what it means, how they are connected, where they are in our path and in our practice, and how they work together to take us more and more closer to freedom from suffering, to end all of this mass problem of birth, old age, sickness, death, and suffering. Yeah, so this is where I'm going to stop. Almost only 6 minutes left. You can go longer if you wish. So now I invite you to ask any questions. You can unmute, or you can write it onto the chat. Okay, Bhagya says, if I am to reflect your sermon sitting the same way as if I am meditating, will that be considered as meditation as per the Buddhist philosophy? May the blessings of the Triple Gem be with you. Yeah. If I'm reflecting your sermon, sitting, it is part of, yeah. So when you say meditation, the Pali word is bhavana. Yeah. So bhavana means cultivation, cultivation of the mind. Cultivation of the mind does not only include just sitting down and becoming still, it also can happen, but it is also using reflections, listening the teachings, application. All of that is part of that cultivation. Yeah. So if you are giving full attention, yeah, the Buddha says before he starts a sermon, tansunata sadhukang manasi karota, yeah. So give your attention and lend your ear, give your attention and attend carefully, yeah. And if you're giving full attention and able to listen with full attention, understand, comprehend, and at the same time do a little bit of reflection. But more of the reflection happens after the talk, but at that time you can quickly see, yeah, when also this is why we repeat again and again, and then it starts to make sense. So the mind does not go anywhere else, but is kept up in this one Dhamma point. And then, of course, the mind can become quite still, yeah, quite very still, but not enter deep meditation because the mind is still active, mind is still working. But mind can gain a lot of inspiration. And if it starts to gain a lot of inspiration as it starts to make sense, and these kind of sequences are very powerful, like Paticca sequence itself, the dependent origination sequence is very powerful. This sequence, how the ignorance is kept up, is very powerful. And as you hear that, joy comes up, yeah, with that Dhamma inspiration. It makes so beautiful sense. Yeah, Buddha's teachings are so beautiful, makes sense, easy to understand, and you can understand it. You can apply it into your life and you can see it through your own life in your own mind. Yeah, when it starts to do that, the Dhamma joy, when that piti comes up, that is a trigger to give gladness in your mind. And that, when after the sermon, when this finishes, if your mind has such incredible gladness born from hearing and understanding the teaching, then it can enter deep meditation quite soon. So this is how you hear sometimes in the sermons, you hear after listening to a certain teaching, so many monks, 500 monks and nuns got enlightened. And you wonder, how did that happen? This is how, right? They attend very carefully, very mindfully, and as they reflect, and the mind gets inspiration in the Dhamma, inspiration in the meaning, yeah, and then as a result, and after the sermon, their mind enters deep meditation. And as they come out of that deep meditation, the big insights can come because it is really all shaped nicely. All the important things are put in the sermon. Maybe that is all that particular person needed, and with that, it can happen. But of course, it's not during the sermon. After that, it can lead to deep meditation. So it is really important, if this is the kind of thing inspires your mind, listening to inspiring Dhamma talks, in a good space and with enough time. And when the sermon ends, you can allow yourself to go into meditation. Yeah, it's a really beautiful way to enter meditation. Right, Sandika, you can just speak up. Yeah.
Hi, Venerable Karunika. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for explaining it so clearly as well. Been really enjoying it. I've got a bit of a cheeky question. I know, like, you've obviously got a biology background. Um, how much of our DNA do you think plays in the conditioning of, our ignorance, in the sense? Because I guess, like, I would feel like that survival instinct is quite ingrained in us. And as you said earlier as well, like, even though you kind of know all this stuff, there's still that, like, survival part of you that, I guess identifies with yourself and all of that. But yeah, I wonder, from a science background, do you have any comments on whether there's conditioning from just genetics?
Yeah, thank you for a very beautiful question. I would love to answer this. I'll try to give a brief answer, but this could make a beautiful Dhamma talk, one that I would absolutely delight in. But I'll tell you a few things. Human genome is only 20,000 genes, right? Very little. And our genome, the DNA, only produces proteins, which are just the building blocks, yeah? Building blocks to make our body. But science doesn't even know, using the building blocks, how it comes up with the different people who look different, think different, behave different, with all different kinds of, health and all these things, because we pretty much have very similar kind of DNA. Our DNA doesn't change, but people are so varied. Yeah, even how it is put together is still a mystery to science. So our DNA, our human genome itself doesn't do very little. It does. It has our biological cycles, for example, the neurotransmitters that can release, how it operates. It operates in a very interesting way. So it's not just the human genes, but it is also our big microbiome. Yeah, there is a trillion microbia in our body, especially in our gut, in our colon, our mouth, all those places, and their signaling also affects us. So of course the signaling that comes as a result of our genes, as a result of all the other microbes that are in our body, but not only that, all the other chemicals, the food we eat. Yeah, there are aphrodisiac things, the food. So there are some other kind of food you eat. The one of them in Sri Lanka is called kohila. Yeah, is a good thing to, or if you have an ulcer, your health, all of this can also trigger your emotions. Yeah, so it's not just your biology, but it is a lot more than your DNA. Yeah, but more than that, it is actually not that. It is the mind. It's the defilements. The real problem is in the mind, in the defilements, but it gets affected. So this is really important. So this is where I'm saying this. I'm just taking up just being a middle-aged woman, easy for me to talk about this. When you going through your cycle, there are times for women especially, there are very highly irritable days. Yeah, there are highly crying kind of days, highly lustful days, highly very down days. So it is all made by our neurotransmitters, for example, and the cycle is not only influenced by our DNA, it is influenced by our food, our sleep, our exercise, our meditation, so many things. So it's not just DNA. So it can be twins, yeah, but they could have different ways and dealing with it. So it's not so much just the DNA, but uh, together with that, this whole body. Yeah, we are trapped in a body and trapped in a mind. So this is just a very gist of what I want to say, but it gives a little bit of a broad understanding of its influence. And but if we are just stuck in a body, then of course enlightenment will be impossible. But we are not stuck. That's the thing. Mind is much more powerful than the body. So this is why it is possible. So with mind, even though there's a beautiful sutta where there's a old couple called Nakula Mata and Nakula Pitta. They're really, really old and it's really hard to walk, in so much physical pain, and goes to the Buddha overwhelmed by pain. And the Buddha says, but householder, even though your body is sick, may it not allow you to have a mind that is sick. Your mind can be healthy, yeah, in spite of the body being sick. So this is why also we start this journey, this spiritual path, yeah, is also to prepare ourselves for old age, sickness, and death, how to deal with these things in a skillful way as and when it happens. So this is where the insights, the teachings, the meditation, all of that comes into, so to overcome the problem and even deal with all of these problems. But of course, it's a holistic approach. That is why I think, especially, I haven't done too much in the Thursday night Dhamma talks, but if anyone who has been here at the monastery for lunchtime Dhamma talk, no one lunchtime Dhamma talk goes without me mentioning, please take care of your food, take care of your exercise, take care of your sleep, take care of your rest. Yeah, all of these things are really important because you need to do what is there to take care of these things. The genes is there, but genes is not the only thing. Genes, very little. It's just building blocks. It's more than this, but microbiome, which is external, can be taken care of. Yeah, and with exercise and all of this holistic approach, when you take care of your general well-being of your body, never to become completely well, because that is also against the Dhamma. Our bodies will never be perfectly healthy. Even if it is today, it may not be tomorrow. It changes constantly. But getting to a certain degree of, otherwise, if we are too overwhelmed by body, overwhelmed by its emotions, triggered by the body, is a problem. Because we know some of the mental health issues or those emotions and stuff come because of external things, and some of them comes from internal things. And of course, there is also the DNA contributing to, the, for example, psychopath mentality, like, the brain chemistry, and some of the mental health issues could be related to the genes, but also otherwise. So, it's a holistic approach. So it's a nice question. Thank you for asking that and giving me the delight of explaining my very favorite part, because this is where we have work to do. It's well and fun and good to talk about this profound topic, dependent origination. But, when we come home to here and now, to applying this to the path, this is where it is important. So thank you. Okay, everybody. So we shall continue this deep and profound topic. And coming up next would be connection to Noble Eightfold Path and meditation practice. All right. Take care, everybody, and have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.